This is Meatgrinder, a hoppy, boomy FPS currently in development by indie studio Vampire Squid. The core idea of Meatgrinder is simple but strong. Take Clustertruck and Duke Nukem 3D and slap them together for some ridiculous truck-hopping carnage. It's a concept that has been resonating with shooter fans, with Meatgrinder earning a good amount of viral attention on Reddit. And if you want a proof of concept, look no further than the excellent Proteus community maps Truck Surfer and Truck Surfer 2 by Rob Salmon. I have it on good authority that those maps helped inspire Meatgrinder. There's been a demo, or should I say open beta, out for Meatgrinder for a few months now, featuring the first 11 levels. I decided to check it out for myself, and today I'll be lending my first impressions, what works so far, and what I think needs some attention before the game's targeted release window of second quarter 2023. So with that, let's hop to it. Meatgrinder takes place in a colorful post-apocalypse where violent raiders dominate the ruined highways of the world. As expressed in the intro, which seems to emulate Ultrakill a bit, you play a character with an engine for a heart and power generators for legs. I'm not sure if that's a metaphor or legitimate, although considering this genre, it's probably the latter. But the most important takeaway is that if you stop, you die. As I mentioned before, the demo features 11 levels set within a post-apocalyptic highway. The full release, however, promises levels taking place on top of cargo planes and cargo trains, which look like a lot of fun. The goal is simply to get to the end and survive the waves of goons and bosses standing in your way. During gameplay, the player has to make sure they keep their heartbeat, or BPM, high by constantly moving and shooting. If your BPM gets too low, it will start to drain your health. Although if you keep it high, it will regenerate your health and fill up your slow-mo meter. Yes, indeed, there is a slow-mo mechanic, and it's exactly what you expect it to be. Helping you stay on the move is a dash mechanic as well as a grapple hook that fires from your foot, like you're the Road Warrior meets Inspector Gadget. The demo features a handful of weapons: pistols akimbo, a super shotgun, and minigun. There's no ammo in the game, but rather a temperature system where guns overheat if overused, with the exception of the pistols. You can give raiders a good boot to the face as well. Visuals are modest and definitely a work in progress, but I think there's some good stuff on display here. A respectable variety of backdrops to keep things fresh, a varied popping color palette that fits the over-the-top comic book post-apocalyptic vibe that this game is going for. There's some genuinely cool destruction effects to enjoy, as well as some decent lighting. Nothing like a hazy sunrise. Now, while I do really dig the concept and style of this game, I honestly came away from this demo a bit disappointed and nervous about the game's supposed second quarter 2023 release. Granted, that sort of release date should always be taken with a grain of salt. Nevertheless, while this is a work in progress, there's some rough aspects to this game I feel the developer needs to give a lot of attention to before Meatgrinder is kicked out to the masses. And from here, I'll be offering my feedback, starting with movement mechanics and the overall game feel.
See ya, jerks!
Movement mechanics are headed in the right direction, but right now are held back by jank, inconsistency, and general awkwardness. Movement is floaty and bouncy in a way where it feels like every surface in the game is made of rubber, and surfaces tended to feel slippery as well, which made it easy to accidentally slide off after landing from a grapple hook or just moving around normally. Not to mention the occasional bit of janky physics that can interrupt your flow. It's just not a very smooth play at the moment. If we compare to Clustertruck, one of this game's influences, while far more exaggerated, the mechanics and physics are polished to the point where the player has a consistent sense of their weight, speed, and momentum, and will always feel like they are firmly on a surface, not slipping and sliding. Because the mechanics are so tight, movement becomes second nature, allowing them to focus on the challenge of navigating the trucks and anticipating their momentum shifts. Meatgrinder needs to aspire to this. While there should be some challenge to moving between trucks, it needs to feel comfortable enough to where it's just muscle memory, and players can focus their attention on combat and navigating, not fighting against jank and wonky physics. The dash mechanic works fine, but every time you use it, there's this slight hitch, as if you're briefly pulled back before being flung forward, and it just feels awkward. The The grapple ability felt imprecise and caused a lot of irritation. Basically, the momentum of the grapple is so strong that on numerous occasions it would fling me clear over my target. It got to the point where every time I used it, I would immediately hold down the S key in an effort to slow myself down and get more control. Where this gets really frustrating is on the hardest difficulty, where touching the pavement is an instant death, as opposed to getting a few safety bounces on normal and easy. To go along with this, each level randomizes the placement of the trucks, which is great, but this can break on the hardest difficulty when trucks become too spaced out apart, and the only options you have is to be a stain on the asphalt. It all felt very cheap. Speaking of cheap, check this out. Yeah, we call that the Miley. Shooting is alright, but it's a little stiff and lacks a sense of power and oomph. Enemies have average damage reactions, mostly violently ragdolling, which does look pretty sweet when airborne, but is underwhelming otherwise. Right now, Meatgrinder is lacking the type of snappy, sledgehammer shooting you want from this type of game. But the bigger issue with the combat is that the enemies don't really do anything. They'll hop towards you, maybe attack, but usually they just stand there looking at you, waiting for you to shoot them. And it wasn't hard to just stand in one place and pick them off one by one, which feels at odds with the you stop, you die concept this game is going for. By the way, I think that BPM meter should be a lot less forgiving. I rarely ran into situations where I was in danger of dying because my BPM was low, and frankly, I didn't really need to think about it all that much during gameplay. The only enemies that posed a threat were the gun-toting ones, but that's largely because these enemies have damn near perfect aim and can shoot you with homing precision, to the point where they basically feel like hit scanners. Granted, their bullets don't really cause a lot of damage, which isn't exactly great either. Last, the demo was buggy throughout. The typical bugs being clipping through geometry. Most times it was harmless, but a few times I clipped right through the trucks into their interiors and got stuck, leading to a failed run. It might be a good idea to include a restart from checkpoint option in the pause menu. And, well, you know, make it so I don't clip. Past that, the bugs garnered some cringy giggles from me. Explosions tend to violently jostle the screen, as well as your gun models, looking all sorts of jank. And here, a bunch of enemies got stuck in the air and continued to attack me. But my favorite of the bugs, jumping behind some gun-toting raiders and watching the bullets shoot backwards towards me. Like I said, homing precision. Oof. There was a lot to critique here in this demo, but I will say there were moments when it did all come together and I could see glimpses of awesomeness. There is potential here, and as I said in the beginning, this is a strong idea. If this developer doesn't nail it, somebody likely will down the road. No pun intended. I'm not really confident this game will be ready by its second quarter release window, but I do think if the developer gives this a lot of TLC and focuses on getting those base mechanics as tight and smooth feeling as possible, as well as giving the enemies more bite, this could turn into a nice surprise. We'll just have to wait and see. If you find this game interesting and are the type that enjoys giving constructive feedback to developers, then consider hopping on Steam and giving this demo a shot. I'll have the link for it down in the description. Otherwise, if you have any thoughts about this game, please share them with me down in the comments. If you dug the video, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and smack that bell. If you want to come say hi, my Discord is linked below, along with my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.